Setsu was an emo hero who got isekai'd for a second time to a world he already saved before, so he hid his S-ranked skills to live normally. However, his plans were ruined when he discovered the continent was at war, so he went on a solo mission to save the world by clapping baddies from all the races at war. It all started one afternoon when Setsu was chilling with his childhood friend Yuhai in class, and suddenly a huge portal opened that transported him and his entire class into a fantasy world. The sudden drift from math class to a Call of Duty Warzone map left Setsu's NPC classmates dumbfounded. But Setsu was excited because he knew exactly what was going on. Just then, some huge armored monsters started marching towards them, causing his classmates to run away, and when one of them tried attacking Setsu and Yuhai, Setsu sent it flying with the single flick of a finger. Setsu and Yuhai started running away like their classmates, but their path was blocked by some armed knights that charged at the monsters. Setsu and his classmates watched from a safe distance as the knights fought off the monsters, and suddenly, Setsu realized that the monsters were being powered up by a curse. Just then, a warrior girl named Elka showed up and told Setsu's class to head to safety before charging into battle alongside her partner Glein and annihilating the giant monsters using Rukia's Bankai moves from Bleach. After leaving the war zone, Setsu's class arrived at the palace of the king of Distinia, who informed them that they were summoned to fight against the demons that had plagued that world for over 5 years now. The queen added that a hero who came to their world 5 years ago succeeded in ending the war and officially asked for their aid in fighting the demons. Setsu's classmates decided that it was the best option to stay there, so she directed them to their rooms. The next day, Setsu's male classmates began training in swordsmanship, while the ladies were being taught magic by Elka, and it didn't take long before Yuhai nailed her first fire spell. Setsu, who was watching from the corner, was pleased to see this, but his pleasure didn't last long because Elka met up with him and accused him of slacking off. His nonchalant response to her accusations made her charge at him with her wooden blade. He easily dodged her attack and countered by spanking her right in the peaches. This made her remember that he was actually her master Setsu, the hero from 5 years ago, so she groveled and started simping for him. A knight named Glein showed up and was confused when he saw Setsu sitting on Elka's back, so she revealed to him that the almighty Setsu was back. The three of them met up with a lady named Thea who was cooking up a magic potion, and she instantly recognized him as Setsu because of his potent magic power. After a heartwarming reunion, the four of them went to a separate location where Setsu explained that after the battle between he and Toma, the corrupted hero, he was sent back to Japan where he lived a regular life but still retained his memories and power, until one day, when a magic circle appeared in his classroom and sent him back to Distinia alongside his classmates. Setsu asked about Toma, bringing up the fact that the cursed magic which powered the demons was something only he could pull off, and they replied that they had no idea where he was but guessed that Setsu's reappearance could mean his return as well. A while later, the king declared an all-out war with the demons, and despite Glein's attempt to suggest a more diplomatic approach at handling things, the doofus king and his wife decided that it was best to settle things in a chaotic way. Some hours later, Glein, Elka, and Thea met up with Setsu and informed him about the upcoming war, which made him decide that he'd stop the war all by himself all over again. Elka and the others expressed their willingness to fight by his side, but Setsu refused their offer and told them to protect the royal capital while he does some solo leveling by taking the demons head-on. Afterwards, Setsu and his squad infiltrated a private room in the royal capital, where Setsu found his sacred sword named Kunamaru. But it didn't take long before the guards caught wind of their criminal antics, so Glein and Thea fought them off while Setsu ran off with Elka. When they got outside, Setsu was saying some parting words to Elka when Yuhai suddenly showed up and asked him where he was going. Setsu explained that he was summoned for a second time to that world and needed to go face his arch-nemesis, causing her to cry as she demanded to go with him. However, Setsu refused and claimed that he didn't want to put her in any danger. Yuhai responded by doing a heartwarming tease which showcased her mastery of wind and fire magic and promised to get strong enough to protect Setsu as he walked away. Elsewhere, a girl named Ruri was on a carriage trying to complete her late grandfather's last job, which was to deliver a special artifact to a client, and she was attacked by a wild boar. The boar knocked her right out of her carriage and she managed to protect the artifact, but the boar still threatened to attack her again. Fortunately, Setsu arrived right in time to save her, and she mistook him for a bandit who was after her non-existent cash, so she offered to give him the money she'd make from delivering the items. However, Setsu refused her offer and said he was only trying to ensure her safety. When he extended his hand towards her, she got a flashback of a special customer her grandpa once had, and when he asked why she was carrying goods without a guard, she replied that she couldn't find anyone who would take the job because she was in a rush to leave. Setsu said some inspiring words to her as he walked away, but she stopped him and begged for him to be her guard. He refused the offer, saying that he had his own errands to run, but she begged him with puppy eyes until he eventually folded and agreed to escort her to a port town named Marcin, which was ahead. When they got to the port town, Setsu noticed that the town was more active than he initially experienced, so Rory explained that the trade in the town went up after the war 5 years ago. Rory tried to get a ship to the Demon Continent, but the captain refused and explained that every ship was cancelled for the foreseeable future because of the war going on. However, Rory refused to back down, and she proceeded to ask other sea captains in the area if they could help her out with a ship ride to the Demon Continent, but they all turned down her request one by one. Right when Setsu was about to step in and do something about her miserable situation, he saw her getting bullied by some knights of Distinia. When they tried to take the package she was trying to deliver, Rory refused to let them, causing one of them to try to get physical with her. Fortunately, Setsu showed up in time to stop him, and he made a power move by introducing himself as Rory's guard, causing them to challenge him to a fight. Setsu was more than happy to oblige them, but before the battle could begin, the people in the city gathered around them. Knowing that it would be problematic for them if they pulled their swords against civilians with witnesses around, the knights had no choice but to leave. Much later in the evening, Setsu and Rory were snacking on some sandwiches while celebrating their victory over the dumb knights, and when Setsu asked how she was going to deliver the package, Rory said she'd somehow find a way to buy a ship. Knowing she was too broke to even afford a wheelbarrow, Setsu came up with a different plan, which was for her to accompany him to the Demon Continent since it was where he was headed in the first place. However, he gave her a condition where she had to rest up in an inn that night, and she not only agreed but offered to split the bill with him, which was something no Gen Z baddie would ever do. At the inn, Rory showed Setsu the special package, and he instantly recognized it as a special brooch. She narrated how her grandfather was a famous jeweler who could make things that no one else in Distinia could ever make. One day, someone came in to request a repair of that special brooch, which was her grandfather's finest creation, but the old man reached the end of his natural life before he could deliver it, and hence Rory was put in charge of completing the delivery as his final request from her. Back in the present, Rory left Setsu with the package and went for a shower, and after she left, Setsu found out that the brooch in the box was the one he cast protection magic on 5 years ago, which made him wonder how it broke. Later that night, Setsu was having a hard time sleeping thanks to his disorderly roommate when suddenly the bully knights from earlier stormed into the inn and demanded to know their room. When the knights got to their room, Setsu leapt out of the window with Rory and made the knights frustrated as they chased them all over the city, running into several of Setsu's well-placed traps along the way. Setsu eventually reached a dead end, so the knights thought they finally dubbed the W until Setsu grabbed Rory and jumped into the air. The knights thought they'd be cooked since it was the ocean that was below, but their jaws dropped to the floor when a sea dragon named Levia came out from the ocean to catch them. Apparently, Levia was a close ally to Setsu, so she immediately complied when he asked for a ride to the Demon Continent. During their ride, Rory was stunned because she knew Levia was a dragon known as the God of the Ocean, and it didn't take long before they arrived at the Demon Continent. After dropping Setsu and Rory on the shore of the Demon Continent, Levia engaged in a no-holds-barred wrestling match against a giant squid, and afterwards, she assumed a human form which Setsu introduced to Rory as a friend of his. Levia started chewing Setsu out for not helping her during the fight against the squid, and Rory interrupted them by asking what they intended to do with the corpse of the squid. Setsu ended up barbecuing it for lunch, and while they ate, Levia informed Rory that Demon Lord's castle named Evil Barrow was where she was meant to deliver the package, and that the recipient of the package was none other than the Demon Lord herself named Dezes. Setsu asked Levia to accompany them on their journey to the Demon Lord's castle, but she refused and started ranting about how Setsu abandoned her for years only to return and use her as a boat. Seeing this, some demon kids came by and started teasing Setsu, so he won them over by feeding them some of his barbecue squid. Afterwards, they carried the body of the squid into the nearby village, which had been starving because of the war, and they all partied while feasting on Setsu's Michelin star dish. On a cliff somewhere, the head of Demon Lord Dez's personal guard named Vlad saw the village looking bright for once and assumed that humans had violently invaded their land, so he rushed down to check what was going on. By the time the party was over, Ruri was high on Coca-Cola and she decided to have a little girl talk with Levia, so she asked how she and Setsu met. Levia narrated how 5 years ago, Setsu tried to blaze through the oceans without her permission, which caused them to fight, and afterwards, she helped him finish the war and became close allies with him. However, Ruri's tiny brain had a meltdown when she realized that the Setsu that had been accompanying her all along was the hero who ended the war 5 years ago. She asked if the sudden drop in ocean wars was related to Setsu, so Levia revealed that Setsu was the one who ordered her to maintain peace in the oceans 5 years ago. When Ruri asked if she was in love with Setsu, Levia said no, but expressed that she was happy that he'd returned after 5 years, and their conversation was interrupted when Vlad made a dramatic entrance. Vlad drew his sword and was ready to face any enemies he could find, but all he saw were the demon kids who offered him some of the fried squid. Much later, Vlad apologized to Levia for crashing their party, and when Setsu came along, he begged them to save the Demon Lord. Vlad explained that the Demon Lord was asked to marry a man named Terran who put her under a powerful subjugation curse using a necklace he gave her instead of a ring. He went further to tell them about how their demon nation was repeatedly attacked by soldiers from Destinia and how the Demon Lord sent an emissary to the human nation that was yet to return. Taking advantage of Dez's reluctance to go to war, Terran offered to negotiate on their nation's behalf. Hearing this, Setsu doubted that Terran was anything special, but Vlad revealed that he was at the top of the world in a way that was similar to Setsu. Ruri clarified that Terran was a top dog not because of his fighting skills, but rather because he was the world's wealthiest merchant and the head of the Terran Trading Company, which owned most merchant ships at sea. Given the fact that both humans and demons needed merchants to help wage cross-continent war, Vlad knew Terran's claims weren't baseless, but he felt uneasy about the fact that Dez's was willing to become a slave to stop the war. Setsu started yelling at him, asking why the guards were letting her make such a rash decision, and Levia revealed that it was because of the promise she made to Setsu 5 years ago, which was to maintain peace. In light of this, Levia suggested they help her out and Setsu agreed. Vlad advised Setsu to conserve his magic so he could take on whatever complications that Terran has in store for them, and Levia offered to take care of the numerous beasts that swarmed the castle. As they ran towards the Demon King's castle, they got to a point where some wolves surrounded them, and Levia took out the beasts one after the other by tearing them apart with water slashes. Afterwards, she asked Setsu what the plan was, and he replied that he intended to punch a hole through Terran's thick skull. When Levia brought up the fact that the war couldn't be stopped without the rich merchant, Setsu guessed that he was the one behind the war in the first place. He brought up the giant armored monsters which weren't on the side of either Destinia or the demons and suggested that the war was set up using these creatures so that Terran could sell his cursed necklace for peace. Setsu expressed his intentions to interrogate Terran into revealing who the real mastermind is, and when more beasts attacked them, Levia took them out easily with several water blasts, causing Setsu to praise her improved skills. When they continued their run, Levia thought about how Setsu helped her see how beautiful the world was by motivating her to come out of the water, and she decided that she wouldn't let Dez's get all the attention. When they arrived at Evil Barrow, she advised Setsu to do his worst as he leapt into the air to face the unknown enemies that awaited him. Several years ago, Setsu ended the war between humans and demons by rizzing up Dez's during their fight and giving her the special black brooch as a present. And this brought her to tears because it made her realize that she was following the wrong path. 5 years later, Vlad informed Dez's that Setsu had disappeared from the world, and this only strengthened her determination to protect the peace they had with humans for his sake. When she and Vlad were strolling through the village and talking about how peaceful the world had become due to their efforts, her brooch suddenly cracked, which made Vlad offer to send it to a skilled craftsman in Destinia for repairs. A while later, a guard stormed into the palace to inform Dez's that the people of Destinia had started a war with them, causing her to order all her top officers to gather in their office in order to prepare their army. She also sent 2 soldiers by the name of Xian and Lamina to Destinia to find out what was going on with them. And after they left, she swore to herself that she'd keep the promise she made with Setsu no matter what. A month into the war, Rizz was troubled by the fact that Destinia was yet to make contact with them because she knew that the way things were going, her army wouldn't last much longer. She worried that she was incapable of keeping her promise to Setsu until Vlad arrived with the information that Terran was requesting an audience with her. She knew she couldn't turn him down because he was their world's equivalent of Elon Musk, so she ordered Vlad to bring him in. When Terran said his offer, the demons in the area all started calling him an arrogant idiot, but he assured them that he was 100% serious and expressed that he'd like to use the power of Terran trading to help end the war with Destinia. When Rizz asked what he gets in return for his efforts, Terran said he wants her to be his wife, and she immediately figured out that he wanted her to be his slave and not his wife. He offered her a necklace which would serve as a symbol of engagement between them, and all it took was one glance for everyone in the area to realize that the necklace was carrying a powerful curse of servitude. Rizz asked where he got it, and he replied by babbling some nonsense about how he went to Konoha to fight Sasuke for it. Vlad angrily suggested to Rizz that they send this loser back to the $1 million trash can he came from, but she stopped him and said she needed some time to think. Terran said she didn't have much time because Destinia would soon gain the upper hand in the war, and he laughed maniacally as he left the building. Much later, Rizz was alone in her palace contemplating whether or not to take Terran's offer when Vlad showed up and offered to fight alongside the army until the last man just so she wouldn't take the offer. She replied that it was because she knew they were determined to fight for her that she couldn't refuse the offer, and asked him if he thought it made her a foolish demon lord. However, Vlad said he wouldn't give up on her, and after he walked away, Rizz cried as she wondered how Setsu would react when he saw her getting married against her wishes. Elsewhere, Terran was in the carriage with his mysterious partner bragging about how easy it was to put the demon lord under his control, and when he asked the man if it was time for them to pull back their cursed soldiers, he replied that there wasn't any need because his master wished otherwise. On the day of the wedding, the people gathered in a church and Rizz showed up in a pretty white wedding dress which made everyone gaze at her with lustful eyes. When the priest asked them to exchange vows, Terran brought out the necklace and loudly declared that they were entering into a vow of master and servant. He also claimed that the Terran company gaining the power of the demonic kingdom of Eviltheon would bring eternal peace to the world, and asked the people in the crowd to pledge their allegiance to the new demon lord, which was himself. After his dumb villain speech, he asked Rizz if she would vow her eternal love to him, and with tears in her eyes, she opened up her neck for him to place the cursed necklace while wishing to see Setsu one last time. However, her wish came true in the most dramatic way as Setsu made a chaotic entrance by bursting through the window with his sword and stretching his hand out to save her. Terran was so ticked off that he ordered his minions to attack them, and when they charged to make the attack, Levia made an epic entrance of her own by blasting each of them off the sky with her water bending. Just then, Terran's mysterious partner activated a shadow magic spell that immobilized Levia despite her attempts to avoid it by leaping into the air. The wannabe Jinwoo attempted to finish her off with a bunch of shadow tentacles, but before they could make contact with her, Setsu rippled them apart. Before the Shadow Man could even understand what was going on, Setsu appeared behind him and delivered a brutal blow to his back which yeeted him into the corner. When Setsu tried to take out Terran, the Shadow Man reawakened and sent an even larger shadow attack at Setsu, but Setsu stopped it with his bare hands before ripping it again with his sword. After dodging some other shadow attacks which the shadow loser threw at him, Setsu zoomed in behind him and kicked him into the wall. When Setsu asked for round 3, the Shadow Man said they'd settle things another time and escaped by blasting through the wall. Afterwards, Setsu had a romantic reunion with Rizz which was interrupted when Levia called their attention to the minions which she took down during the fight. When the bodies of these men vanished into thin air, they realized that they were magic soldiers made from curses, and this made Setsu even more certain that it was Toma who was running things behind the scenes. Rizz offered to help Setsu in his fight against Toma, so Setsu told her to handle things in the Demon Continent while he heads off to meet a guy named Regulus in order to gain the support of the Beastmen. Just then, Ruri and Vlad arrived at the castle and Ruri gave Setsu the brooch, allowing him to rizz up Rizz a second time by giving her the brooch once again in a very romantic manner. Much later, Terran was arrested by the demon guards and Setsu promised Dezes that he'd take her wherever she wanted when they achieved peace again. Ruri informed Setsu that Dezes allowed her to open a shop in the demon continent as a way of repaying her for safely delivering her package, and Vlad said some parting words to Setsu as he and Levia made their way out of the castle. Several years ago in the human world, Setsu and Yuhai's parents introduced them to each other for the first time, and despite Setsu's initially harsh reception of Yuhai, the two of them ended up becoming best friends who did everything together. When they were walking home from school one day, Yuhai brought up the idea of going to the same school as Setsu, but he suggested that she should aim for an easier school that wouldn't cause her too much trouble. This made her so sad that she ran away, but eventually she realized that Setsu was right because the result of the mock exam she took was just pathetic. On her way back home after the exam, some thugs tried to bully her, so Setsu stepped in and scared them off. He asked Yuhai what she planned to do about her situation, and she replied that she wanted to go to the same school as him, even though she knew she wasn't good enough. When Setsu saw that she was in tears, he comforted her by offering to help her with her studies. In the present time, Setsu's female classmates were doing some intense magic training with Elka, and an NPC started celebrating after casting a faint flame spell. So Yuhai pulled a massive aura farming move by obliterating her practice doll with a significantly more powerful flame spell, causing Elka to praise her skills. After the training ended, Yuhai met up with Elka and Glein and asked them if they were Setsu's companions. Elka confirmed that they were and spent a couple of minutes talking about her dream of standing beside him forever before asking Yuhai what her actual question was. Yuhai asked her to give her some special training because she desired to be with Setsu as well. So she took her to a secluded spot where she explained to her that the world was peaceful because Setsu made it that way, and added that Setsu was currently fighting hard to maintain the peace in the world. Elka went further to say that as his companions, they were staying prepared so that they could act at a moment's notice, and Yuhai replied that she had both the desire and determination to do whatever it took to stand beside Setsu. However, she knew she lacked the strength, so she challenged Elka to a sparring match, and Elka was more than happy to oblige. Elka charged at her with her sword, and Yuhai managed to deflect her strikes using her staff. When Elka fired a barrage of icicles at her, Yuhai cast a flame spell which melted them instantly before clashing blades with Elka again. Elka eventually stopped her attack and told Yuhai that she was much stronger than she realized, adding that she was the only one out of her entire class of reincarnated idiots who actually felt special. However, she claimed that there was still something she lacked if she wanted to be with Setsu, and took her to a sewer which was infested with monsters to educate her on what that missing piece was. Just then, a monster which looked like an alligator came out of the river, causing Yuhai to panic, and Elka told her that she needed to take action because she had more than enough strength to do so. Yuhai blasted it with a flame spell and started celebrating, but the monster came back on the attack as it bit her wand and slashed her arm with its claws. Elka gave Yuki a signal to attack again, so she fought through the pain and blasted a huge fireball at the deformed alligator, which put it down again. However, the monster was still moving, and Yuhai was acting timid, so Elka told her to finish it off. Elka said that despite the fact that Yuhai had nearly as much magic power as she had, she needed to have the resolve to unalive enemies, else they'd destroy her allies. She bluntly claimed that the determination to take lives was what Yuhai lacked before finishing off the monster herself using a rain of icicles. The next day, Thea visited Yuhai in her room and healed the injuries she sustained during her fight against the alligator monster. Thea claimed that she saw Yuhai as an ally because Setsu was fond of her, but also stated that Elka was right because determination wasn't something that could be taught. She revealed that Elka was only being hard on her because she wanted to consider her as an equal, and then asked her why she wanted to be with Setsu so badly. Yuhai replied that it was because Setsu had helped her out her whole life, which was why she wanted to be the one to help him this time. Thea wished her good luck and left the room, and on the outside, she saw Elka feeling salty about the conversation they just had, so she assured her that Yuhai was strong. Elka expressed her concerns that Yuhai could end up facing a dangerous opponent, and Thea replied that when the time comes, it would be up to Yuhai to find the determination she needs for herself. Much later that day, Glein noticed that Yuhai was feeling down about all the drama that happened with Elka, so he told her that it was normal to hesitate when faced with the decision of taking a life, even if it's for the sake of someone precious to her. When Yuhai asked how he found his determination, he said he chose to make others suffer rather than watch the people around him suffer like any other soldier. He however stated that it was his own answer and that she'd have to find her own answer for herself. As he left, he told her that Setsu would probably want her to figure out the best possible answer for herself, and this gave her a bit of the clarity she was looking for. The next day, Yuhai made everyone's jaw drop to the floor when she obliterated her practice doll and the surrounding area with a flame spell that Natsu Dragneel couldn't even dream of pulling off. Afterwards, she and Elka returned to the sewers for another tango with the beast, and when another alligator monster showed up, she told Elka that she'd found her determination. When the beast changed at her, she roasted it alive with a single brutal fireball, causing Elka to praise her skills. However, she revealed that the monster was only temporarily incapacitated and stated that her determination was that she'd never lose and never take anyone's life. Elka was pleased because her answer was very similar to Setsu's, and Yuhai promised that she'd become powerful enough to protect everyone using this new resolve. Much later, Glein informed Yuhai and her class that they'd be heading to the demonic nation of Eviltheon the next day, and after the announcement, Yuhai smiled as she claimed the stairs to join Setsu's personal squad. The next morning, Setsu and Levia were in a carriage on their way to the Beastman continent, and Setsu started chewing Levia out for snacking on cookies without a care in the world when she previously claimed that she'd lock in during their journey. Levia said it didn't matter because there was nothing to do until they landed in the Beastman continent, and also reminded him that she'd be on boat duty when they got to the port. Setsu asked if there was a way for her to magically teleport them to their location, and she replied that transfer magic was something that took years of preparation and extreme magic power to be able to execute. She requested his own share of their snacks, and right when he was about to hand it to her, their carriage stopped at the request of someone who wanted to hitch a ride with them. Setsu was stunned when he saw that the person was a demon named Elizy, and she immediately burst into tears as she expressed how happy she was to see her master Setsu again. Some minutes later, Setsu introduced her to Levia as someone he traveled with the last time he was summoned, and she claimed that she was Setsu's top pupil. Elizy revealed that Setsu taught her the fundamentals in a physical way every night, and the way she worded her statement made Levia suspect that Setsu pulled some diddy moves on her. The demon that boarded their carriage with Elizy introduced herself as Elizy's little sister Emile, and when Setsu expressed his surprise over the fact that Elizy had a sister, they revealed that she was a sister not by blood, but because they stayed together for a while. When Elizy asked Setsu why he ghosted her for 5 years, he explained his whole Isekai adventure to them and revealed his intention to thwart Toma's plan. Setsu then asked Elizy to accompany him to the Beastman continent and help him out just like she did 5 years ago, and she replied that she would have loved to join him, but unfortunately couldn't because she was stuck in a desperate situation of her own thanks to Emile. Elizy explained that after Setsu vanished, she continued taking jobs as a way of continuing her training until one day when she accepted a request by a village named Zathro to slay a dragon. While she was at Zathro, an elder put her in charge of taking care of Emile, who was a special guest in their village, and when they had dinner together, Emile informed Elizy that she wasn't from the village. She told her about her brother who hasn't come home ever since the dragon appeared, and Elizy noticed how lonely she was, so she offered to stay with her in the village for a while when the dragon issue gets settled. Emile accepted her offer, and Elizy decided to sweeten the deal even more by asking her to assume the role of her little sister during her stay. Back in the present, Setsu asked Elizy if Emile's brother was missing because he got unalived by the dragon, and Elizy replied that it most likely wasn't the case because every time a dragon attacked, several villagers went missing, not just her brother. She went further to explain that during every dragon attack, the dragon always leaves some evidence of the battle behind, and during those attacks, everyone disappears without the slightest trace. During Elizy's dragon mission, she thought the first order of business would be to defeat the dragon, so she took a drastic measure by disabling the village's ward against evil to lure the dragon into the area. Emile warned her that it would be a dangerous plan, but Elizy assured her that she'd be fine and told her to go home so she wouldn't be put in danger. After Emile left, the dragon showed up and engaged in a heated battle against Elizy. After dodging a breath attack from the dragon, Elizy stabbed it in the back, causing it to shriek in pain as it flew away. Elizy chased it deep into the nearby forest in an attempt to finish it off, but she lost track of it. When she returned to the village, she saw that everyone in the village had gone missing, So she rushed in to check on Emil, and was relieved to see that she was the only one still left in the village. At dawn, she decided to go to the city to have someone take care of her, which was what led her to hitch a ride with Setsu and Levia. Alize asked Setsu if he knew anything about a dragon that kidnapped people, and he replied that he hadn't heard anything about it, but still offered to help them out with their predicament. Levia suggested that the incident at the village could have a case of the villagers being turned into zombies by an evil necromancer, so Setsu debunked her dumb theory by reminding her that zombies increased in number instead of disappearing. However, Levia said there were a unique kind of zombies called air zombies that became invisible once they became zombies, and when Setsu asked about the dragon, she said the dragon could have been a dragon zombie. Setsu told her to cut out the nonsense, so she changed her guess, this time suggesting that the people going missing could be the work of a siren which had the power to lure men into the ocean with its song. Setsu debunked this other stupid theory of hers by reminding her that the village was in the mountains before bringing up an even lower IQ theory which suggests that the people in the village were abducted by space aliens, which made Levia knock him in the head. When they finally decided to get serious, Setsu said it could be the work of an advanced species like Levia and asked her if she had the power to make villagers disappear without a trace. Levia said she couldn't do that and asked why the dragon didn't just use magic to make Alize disappear during their fight. Before anyone could provide an answer, their conversation was interrupted by the driver, who informed them that he wouldn't be able to cross to the other portion of the road until the water settled down. Levia asked Alize what she intended to do when she reached the city, and Alize responded that she planned to return to the village of Zathro in order to find evidence of the lost villagers. When Setsu asked why the dragon kept attacking the village over and over again, Levia guessed that it was because the dragon was really hungry and saw humans as prey. She also presumed that it could be because it was attracted to magic power because the presence of powerful magic drew creatures to certain areas. Once again, Setsu raised the question of why the people disappeared, and this time used it to validate Levia's theory about the dragon being attracted to magic by suggesting that transfer magic was used to send the people of the village somewhere else. The isekai Sherlock Holmes deduced that the dragon was only appearing in the village repeatedly because it was lured by the magic power of someone who had been casting transfer magic on the villagers. When Alize asked who could be the one casting the transfer magic on the people, Setsu pointed out the fact that transfer magic took years of planning in order to execute, which made them realize that Emil was the one casting the spell. Emil tried to deny their accusations by claiming she was the victim, but Setsu brought up a previous statement she made during their brainstorming that proved that she knew more than she was telling them. Just then, Emil admitted to being the mastermind and destroyed their carriage as she transformed into the dragon. She fired several flame attacks at them, but Setsu and the gang dodged. Alize was feeling gloomy about the fact that her so-called little sister just kicked her to the curb, but Setsu motivated her to get back into action. They baited the dragon into a portion of the floor where it slipped, and this created an opportunity for Setsu to launch a combo attack, which sent the dragon back. When the dragon tried to run away, Setsu told Alize to finish it off, so she stabbed it in the head, causing it to disintegrate into light particles. Later that evening, Alize went back to the house where she and Emil used to stay, and she was stunned when Emil showed up unscathed alongside several beasts. When Alize asked where the villagers were, Emil replied that she'd turned them all into her dolls because they had strong magic power. Emil reintroduced herself as Melular, the monster maker, and revealed that she was given that name by her master Toma. In the Beastman content, a certain beast girl named Shireniko was walking through town, and everyone around started handing her food gifts and glazing her for being a strong fighter until her hands couldn't contain any more of their stuff. She managed to carry all of the load to her home, where her sickly sister Minko started coughing and had to take a special magic potion to reduce the effects of her disease. Minko tearfully apologized to her, and Shireniko embraced her, while promising that she'd one day make her better. Meanwhile, Setsu and Levia went to a certain merchant to get a boat, and the merchant refused to hand them any. So Setsu used his Rizz to convince Levia to be their ride for the fourth night in a row. However, their little arrangement didn't last for long because one of the boat merchants said a boat would be ready the next day, causing Setsu to ditch the previous idea. While Setsu and Levia argued over their travel plans, Shireniko passed by and went to a pharmacist named Kiroinu, who gave her an expensive potion for her sister's condition. Afterwards, Kuroinu gave Shireniko a job which was to assassinate Setsu and told her that if she completed that job, she'd be paid so handsomely that she'd never have to work a day in her life again. Just then, Setsu and Levia walked into the room and requested 2 rooms in Kuroinu's inn. On her way out, Shireniko caught a glimpse of Setsu's face and immediately recognized him as her target, but she chose not to make a move. That evening, Shireniko and Maiko were having dinner and Maiko apologized for not being able to eat much of the 5-star meal Shireniko prepared due to her illness. When Shireniko saw that the medicine bottle was empty, she suddenly tensed up, causing Maiko to ask her what was wrong. Shireniko replied that there wasn't any problem and told her to go to bed while she heads out to do one more job. As Shireniko cleared the dishes, the necklace Maiko was wearing started emitting some dark aura, which signified that it was cursed. Later that night, Setsu and Levia were fast asleep, so Kuroinu informed Shireniko, who was waiting outside the inn, that it was time for her to make her move. When Kuroinu asked if she was hesitating, Shireniko replied that she wasn't, but made an odd request by asking to call her big sister since she was the reason that orphans like she and Maiko survived until that point. She added that Kuroinu was like a big sister to them because she took care of them and helped them with medicine when they needed it, and made another request, which was for Kuroinu to go somewhere with her and Maiko to live a nice quiet life as 3 sisters. Kuroinu gave her permission to call her big sister and told her to complete the mission so that Maiko wouldn't be sad. When Shireniko arrived at Setsu's room, she tried to rip him to shreds with her claws, but realized that the Setsu she attacked was an illusion created with magic. The real Setsu appeared behind her and sent her flying through the window with a kick before following her outside. When he asked if she was one of Toma's goons, she replied that she had no idea who Toma was and stated that she had to unalive him before activating her partial beast transformation, which transformed her limbs into claws. She created a huge fireball which she intended to fire at Setsu, but he quickly destroyed it with his sword and smacked her for trying to fire a dangerous fireball spell in the middle of town. When she was unconscious, Setsu and Levia noticed that cursed magic was spewing from her body, and they immediately knew that it originated from Kuroinu's shop. A few hours later, Shireniko woke up and tried to attack Setsu again, but Maiko stopped her and said that Setsu brought her home after finding her unconscious. Setsu gave her a signal to hide the truth from her sister, so Shireniko played along by thanking him for saving her. Setsu pointed out the fact that Shireniko had been taking dangerous jobs for Maiko's sake and revealed that Maiko's condition was more than just a sickness by using some light magic to make the dark aura emitting from her necklace visible to everyone. He revealed that it was a powerful curse, causing Shireniko to panic as she begged him to save Maiko, and Setsu patted her head while assuring her that he'd save Maiko. Following Setsu's instructions, Maiko laid on the bed, and he summoned a special sword named Gluttony, which looked like a dragon's mouth. Setsu activated Gluttony, and it began absorbing the cursed magic from Maiko until Kuroinu made a surprise entrance. She threw a blade in an attempt to stop Setsu, but Shireniko took the hit instead, and Setsu was too occupied with absorbing the dark mana from Maiko. So Levia stepped up to challenge Kuroinu on his behalf. When Kuroinu threw some blades at Levia, she blocked easily with a water wave, and realizing that she was dealing with a sea god, Kuroinu asked why Levia chose to work with a human. However, Levia told her to cut the chit-chat, so Kuroinu pulled a Naruto by surrounding her with a bunch of shadow clones. This proved to be no issue at all for the water-bending Oramami because she destroyed all the clones without lifting a finger and covered the entire area with seawater before finishing Kuroinu off with a brutal water punch to the gut. After the battle, Levia asked Kuroinu to tell her Toma's plans if she wanted to keep on living, and Kuroinu tried to resist before Shireniko came by to plead with her. Kuroinu revealed that Toma's goal was to become a god and destroy every species in the world, leaving Levia confused as she teleported away using a strange magic item. Afterwards, a fully healed Minako tearfully embraced Shireniko, and Setsu told Levia that he'd stop Toma from becoming a god by any means necessary. The next morning, Setsu and Levia were on a boat discussing their plans to meet the Beast King in the royal capital when they noticed Shireniko and Maiko waiting for them on the shore. When they met up with them, Shireniko and Maiko begged them to carry them along and let them fight alongside them as a way of repaying them for their help. Shireniko also expressed a desire to talk to Kuroinu again, so Setsu agreed, and the 4 of them made their way to the royal capital. Several years ago, Setsu was having a sparring match with the Beast King's daughter Roa, and he expressed his disappointment at her current skill level, causing her to refuse the idea of him being her master. She claimed that she'd never acknowledge him as her master unless he beat her, so he told her to charge at him with everything she had, and she did just that. In the present time, the Beast King Regulus was having a meeting with his commander, and one of them suggested that the best course of action was to overwhelm both the humans and the demons instead of waiting to be invaded. Another commander argued that they should prioritize protecting their people, but the first commander called him a spineless coward, causing them to argue in a way that made Regulus depressed. However, his mood lifted when his spidey senses revealed that Setsu had arrived, and Roa got the signal as well, so she gleefully ran outside to greet him. At the same time, Setsu was trying to convince the guards at the gate that he knew Regulus, but they refused to let them through until Roa dove in and took out both guards. She welcomed Setsu by hugging him and suddenly tried to land a surprise attack on him with her claws, but Setsu swiftly took her down. Afterwards, Roa and Setsu started getting a little too cuddly with each other on their way to the throne room, and the rest of the girls expressed how jealous they were about this affair. When Regulus showed up to greet Setsu, he gave the Beast King a warm welcome by slamming him hard on the ground, causing him to laugh and praise his strength. Some minutes passed, and Regulus still couldn't contain his excitement over the fact that Setsu was back, so he proposed a feast which would take place after a fun duel with Setsu. However, Setsu declined his offers and brought up the issue of the war taking place between humans and demons. He informed him that Toma was not only alive, but also the one causing the war and plotting to destroy everyone. Regulus replied that he couldn't sit idly by and watch it happen, but Setsu stopped him from making any rash decisions by reminding him of the possibility of Toma starting something in the Beast continent as well. Levia joined in on their conversation by suggesting that it would be best for Regulus to stay in his city and provide them with backup. Hearing this, Roa offered to go with them in her father's stead, and Regulus knew she was the best replacement for him in terms of rank and ability, but he still wanted to do it himself. Just then, the commander of the Beast Man army named Rauga showed up and claimed that they couldn't afford to spare any of their manpower for other nations before revealing himself to be Roa's fiancé. Roa immediately nodded her head in disapproval of his claims, and Regulus said he couldn't refuse a request from his old friend Setsu. Rauga brought up the fact that Setsu had been missing for 5 years and asked if he could still be trusted, causing Roa to argue on Setsu's behalf. Regulus said both sides had a point and asked how they were going to settle the issue, so Rauga challenged Setsu to a duel. Regulus happily offered to officiate the duel and stated that the winner would take the hand of Roa in marriage. Some minutes later, Regulus apologized to Setsu for escalating things and explained that beastmen were hard to convince things any other way. He also brought up the fact Setsu would unalive 2 birds with 1 stone if he wins the duel, as he'd get military support for the war as well as a beast girl baddie to call a wife. Later that evening, Roa met up with Rauga in his tent and told him that he didn't stand a chance against Setsu, but Rauga said he wouldn't back down because his pride was on the line. Rauga revealed that he had a chance at winning thanks to a magic rune in his right arm, which converts strong will into strength, and when he started talking about how much he wanted to protect her, the rune started glowing in a way that made Roa scared. After leaving his tent, Roa expressed her disappointment over the fact that Rauga didn't look at her during their conversation and said it was the reason she never fell for him in the first place. The next day, everyone was gathered in the arena and hyped up to see the hot-headed beast commander and the washed-up hero throw hands. When Regulus officially announced the start of the battle, Rauga tried to rip Setsu apart with his claws, but unfortunately he was too slow to make contact. He tried an even bigger attack called Flying Claw, but Setsu swatted it away like a mosquito and started trolling him until he used his beast transformation technique to turn himself into a giant monster. Roa warned Setsu to be careful because Rauga's transformed form made him several times stronger than his previous form, but all her concerns meant nothing because Setsu easily ragdolled the bootleg Kurama across the battlefield. Setsu asked Regulus to end the match since his opponent was clearly a bigger L machine than Renji, but Rauga got back up and angrily demanded to continue the fight. Setsu claimed he didn't want to hurt his beastman pride any further, but that statement ticked him off so much that the magic rune on his arm glowed red. Suddenly, a voice started whispering in Rauga's head, accusing him of hating himself because of how weak he was, and this caused his body to mutate into an even more beastly form. Levia instantly recognized the power flowing from him as Toma's curse, and Rauga blasted Setsu into the stands with a single breath attack, causing Regulus to order an evacuation of the audience. Levia handed Setsu his sword, but when he slashed Rauga's arm off, it instantly regenerated. Roa ran into the arena in an attempt to stop the duel, and Setsu managed to save her from Rauga's relentless attacks before warning her that his curse could transmit to her. Roa offered to finish him off herself so he could have a proud beastman death, but Setsu opposed the idea because Rauga was only being affected by a curse and didn't deserve to die for it. Setsu revealed that he had a plan, but said it would render him defenseless while he set it in motion, and Roa offered to defend him while he did his thing. Setsu said the chant to summon gluttony, but instead of the sword showing up, a white mist covered the area. Just then, Rauga's head disintegrated and an illusion of Toma appeared. Toma started giving a clingy ex-girlfriend speech to Setsu, and Roa interrupted him by accusing him of deceiving Rauga. This annoyed Toma so much that he tried to smite her, and when Setsu defended her, Toma expressed an even greater level of disappointment at Setsu before ranting about how Setsu always protected everyone other than him. Toma started speaking like an escaped Arkham inmate as he swore to take down all of the different species in the world so that he and Setsu can live a quiet life as gods. However, Setsu told the Yandir idiot to stop spewing his nonsense and pointed his sword at him while promising to cut him down if he targeted innocent people. Toma then informed Setsu that Destinia had already begun their invasion of the demonic continent and teased Setsu by asking if he could make it in time to save everyone. When Toma's illusion vanished, Rauga's headless corpse fell to the ground, and Roa went to mourn him as the rain started to fall. Later that day, Regulus apologized to Setsu for approving the duel, but Setsu said there wasn't any time to sulk because he needed to make his way to the demon continent to stop Toma ASAP. Regulus said he'd prepare a ship for him and also send the Beastman army to join him shortly after he leaves. Afterwards, Setsu met up with Roa, who was still in the arena, and when he asked if she was okay, she replied that they could get sentimental later because they had important things to take care of. As she left with him, she glanced back at the spot where Rauga kicked the bucket and told him to watch her. 10 years ago, Setsu and Toma were summoned into the kingdom of Destinia, and the mages were pleased that their summoning ritual ended up in a success because the two of them were meant to be heroes who would save their kingdom. The king showed up and got the people even more riled up by declaring Setsu and Toma as God-sent saviors of their nation, causing Setsu to rant about how they were randomly pulled away from their regular lives without a single clue of what was going on. Much later in the day, Setsu was doing some sword practice in the yard, and Toma asked how he could stay calm despite the fact that they'd been pulled into a crazier fantasy story than Game of Thrones. Setsu replied that they needed to get strong so they could face the dragons, demons, and all other sorts of monsters that exist in that world. Toma expressed his fear of going to war and claimed it was wrong to risk their lives fighting against enemies they didn't even know in an unknown land, but Setsu said it didn't justify them doing nothing at the moment. Setsu stretched out his hand to him and told him they needed to do their best to survive so that things would eventually work out for them. So Toma stood up to join him in his training. On their way back to their rooms, Setsu told Toma that they needed to end the war because it was wrong to get unalived by strangers in an unknown land. But Toma argued that there was nothing they could do to stop an ongoing war. He also admitted that he wasn't as strong as Setsu, so Setsu reminded him that they were the chosen heroes of their world and promised to protect him like a brother. Several days later, Setsu packed up his traveling bag and told Toma that he needed to see the world with his own eyes in order to stop the war. Toma apologized over the fact that he was still scared and promised Setsu that he'd one day get strong enough to fight and end the war. The two of them promised to meet again when they became heroes for real, and afterwards, Setsu joined Elka and the others as he officially began his journey as a hero. Sometime later, Toma was granted the title of Knight and the honorific Silver Hero because of his accomplishments in battle and loyalty to the kingdom. This made him happy because he was one step closer to his goal of becoming as strong as Setsu and becoming able to end the war, and the knights that served under him expressed their willingness to sacrifice themselves to make his dream come true. One day, Toma and his knights raided a dark temple, and Toma easily took down a bunch of enemy knights that were in the area before running into a mysterious statue. Some weird mages in the temple begged for him to spare them, but Toma replied that it was absolutely necessary for him to end the war as he beheaded them one by one. Toma's lieutenant came by to inform him that the temple had been cleared out, but he was terrified when he saw the bloody massacre which Toma caused. Toma ordered him to reorganize the survivors and took one more glance at the statue as he made his way out of the castle. However, when he stepped on the blood of the mages he unalived, he heard a female voice that spoke about how the weak didn't deserve to survive. Toma was initially bamboozled, but he eventually figured out that the voice was coming from a cursed necklace that was hanging from the statue, and the voice proceeded to tell him that she could see the envy, despair, and hatred in his heart. Toma replied that he didn't care and started walking away, but the voice rage baited him by claiming it could see his secret desire, and he completely fell for it as he scolded the voice for trying to dictate his desires for him. The voice said she'd grant him the power he needed to fulfill his desire, and this was what caused Toma to finally fold as he grabbed the cursed necklace. After a few minutes, Toma became a mindless, unaliving machine who murdered his own men, and he kept searching for more enemies until one night informed him that a truce had been called in the name of peace, meaning that their forces were to cease their attack and retreat. The knight further informed him that they were ordered to protect the delegation of leaders who were meant to sign the treaty, and Toma sensed a familiar magic energy in a carriage that was approaching them. When the carriage passed, Toma saw Sitsu chilling with Regulus, Dezas, and the rest of his squad, so he wondered why Sitsu was there. After the treaty was signed by the leaders, Glein unveiled a statue which signified their hope for everlasting peace, and everyone celebrated the hero Setsu. When the ceremony was over, Setsu watched from a high ground as the people in the kingdom celebrated the end of the war, and Toma joined him to tell him how amazing he was for ending the war. Setsu said he didn't do anything special, but Toma replied that he couldn't possibly accomplish what Setsu pulled off, causing Setsu to point out that Toma was a very important figure now. Toma was about to tell him something about their promise, but Elka interrupted their conversation as she invited Setsu for their party. Setsu bid farewell to Toma, but on his way out, Toma stopped him and revealed that he was told at the temple that all of his wishes could be granted. Toma suggested they return to their original world together because he'd found a way to do so, but Sitsu refused the offer because he was determined to live a happy-go-lucky life in that fantasy world now that the war was over. This made Toma cry as he quietly begged Setsu not to leave him again, and the curse in his sword corrupted his mind to the point he told Setsu that he was going to destroy everything that gets in his way, whether it be humans, demons, or beastmen. Setsu was stunned by the madness his buddy was displaying, but Toma kicked it up a notch by swearing to destroy anyone who tried to take Setsu from him. When Toma moved to attack, Setsu summoned Gluttony, and Toma charged at him relentlessly while laughing like a maniac. Elka and the others came by to check on Setsu, causing Toma to start ranting like a toxic girlfriend about how the world didn't need anyone else other than the both of them, and the two of them clashed swords intensely once again. Their clash was so powerful that it pushed both of them back, and when Setsu tried to attack from above, Toma intercepted him with a wave of magic energy that caused an explosion in the area. Elka and the gang showed up to the battle zone to check on Setsu, but they couldn't find a trace of any of them when they arrived. Toma somehow survived the blast and stumbled onto the temple, where he told the cursed pendant that none of his wishes came true in the end. When he expressed how lonely he felt, the pendant glowed and showed him a memory of some people, including Kiroinu and the Shadow Man, being used for brutal magic experiments, and in the vision, they expressed how much despair they felt, which made Toma see himself in them. Toma decided to save them, and he did so by destroying the laboratory and offering the former lab rats a chance to destroy the world by joining him. They initially hesitated, but when he brought up how they were similarly rejected by the world, they fully joined his side. In the present, Toma revealed to his companions that his wounds have completely healed and told them that it was time to become gods together by ending the world. At the same time, the Destinian army ships were on their way to the demonic continent, and the commander got everyone hyped by saying they were going to teach the demons the true power of humans. Thea scanned the area and discovered a trace of Toma's magic power, which confirmed that their real enemy was Toma's forces and not the demonic continent. Glein said their recent discovery didn't mean much when it came to stopping the war, because even if they tried to explain to the demon commanders, they'd be treated like spies. Elka expressed her discomfort over the fact that they were starting a pointless war with the demons, and when Glein asked about Setsu, Yuhai said he was doing his best to stop the war from happening. She remembered how Setsu assured her that he'd protect her before leaving to the demon continent and told the rest of the gang that she trusted Setsu. Elka and Glein replicated her energy by claiming that all they had to do wasn't buy time until Setsu arrived, and Thea told Yuhai that she believed in her ability to prevent as many casualties as possible during the war. When the ships arrived at the shore, the battle went into full swing and Glein revealed his game plan to the rest of his unit, which was to circle around the flank and strike the enemy. The demons and the humans fired magic attacks at each other from a distance, and their knights engaged in an intense battle with each other while Glein and his team progressed slowly behind the cliffs. Thea told Yuhai's classmates to avoid attacking enemies that were injured or fleeing, and Elka said they'd wait for the enemy to focus their attention on the front before charging in. When it was time to charge, Glein took out some soldiers with his sword, while Elka and Thea destroyed a bunch more of them using magic attacks. Yuhai's classmates were initially clueless on what to do, but they eventually spread out to join the battle. However, one of them was left alone and frozen when an enemy soldier came in behind her, so Yuhai destroyed the enemy soldiers with a flame attack. The girl started crying because of how useless she felt, but Yuhai comforted her by revealing that she was scared as well and told her not to push herself too hard. It didn't take long before the demon forces started retreating, but Yuhai's classmates continued to chase them down regardless of that. When Yuhai saw that a group of her classmates were about to unalive a demon soldier who couldn't move, she intervened by preaching that it was wrong to end someone who couldn't fight back. Just then, a strange Loli's voice started mocking Yuhai and several magic circles appeared in the sky, which transported a bunch of giant armed monsters to the battlefield. Another magic circle appeared on the ground, which brought forth a possessed version of Alizé, who wasted no time before attacking human soldiers, causing the demons to think they were reinforcements. However, the giant monsters started attacking the demons as well, and Elka froze them using a special ice spell, allowing Glein to split them apart like Kit Kat bars with his sword. When they looked at the body of the armored monster they slayed, Elka realized that they were actually humans contained in the armors, and right when they figured out who Alizé was, Meluar arrived and started teasing them by bringing up the fact that Alizé was formerly in their party. When Elka asked what she did to Alizé, Meluar replied that she turned her into a doll because she was very powerful and asked Elka and the gang to become her next set of dolls for a puppet party. However, Elka charged at her angrily, causing her to use her marionette magic to manipulate Alizé into blocking the attack on her behalf. Elka tried to use Talk no Jutsu to remind Alizé who she was, but it didn't work, and Meluar decided to kick things up a notch by transforming a pool of her cursed blood into a group of deadly monsters, consisting of a snake beast, a dragon, a deformed King Kong, and a lizard monster. The snake monster interfered with Elka's one-on-one battle with Alizé, so Elka took it down with a rain of icicles and Glein easily destroyed the monstrous gorilla with a magic-infused slash, causing Meluar to send the rest of her monsters to surround him. However, Thea came in clutch by spamming several magic circles that exploded in contact with these monsters and took 3 of them out. Elka offered to finish off Meluar, while Thea and Glein took on the remaining monsters. But Yuhai made things even easier for them by taking down the remaining monsters as she ran towards them. When Thea told Meluar that all of her toys were destroyed, she started ranting about how unfair it was that these Avengers wannabes were able to take down her ultimate creations without any physical enhancements whatsoever. She sent Alizé to destroy them, but Glein swiftly took Alizé down with a single attack, and before Meluar could create any more monsters, Els stabbed her right in the chest. As Meluar choked on her own blood, Els informed her that she was finished because her magic organ had been pierced, and said it was the price she had to pay for toying with people's lives. However, Meluar got back up and revealed that her body, which was modified, had an extra heart, lung, and magic organ. She told them about how Tama saved her from the brutal experiments which were conducted on her body and claimed she had to assist Toma in destroying the world. Just then, she activated her limit break, which was a move that allowed her to break past her normal limits, and she conjured up a 3-headed beast called a chimera. Using her perfect marionette doll technique, she fused herself with the chimera, and Thea realized that she was fueling her magic power with her own life force and hatred. When Meluar tried to stop them, the gang managed to dodge, so she tried to destroy them with a triple breath blast, which was ultimately blocked by the combined efforts of Thea and Yuhai. Meluar was impressed by their resistance and loaded up another triple breath blast attack to see if they could tank it again, but before she could let it rip, a butterfly distracted her, allowing Isekai'd to stab her from behind. With tears in her eyes, Isekai'd hugged Meluar's bloody body and reminisced about the day they became sisters. Meluar shed a tear of her own before turning into stone along with the huge chimera body she was in. Some minutes later, Glein checked on Isekai'd and he informed Elka that she'd survive because her injuries could be fixed with healing magic. Thea was feeling relieved by the fact they'd overcome a powerful foe, but their moment of peace didn't last because the Shadow Man appeared in a dramatic fashion and they instantly recognized that he was extremely powerful. However, Yuhai offered to fight him, and everyone told her that he was way out of her league, but she convinced them to let her face him by reminding them of their promise to treat her like an equal. Glein said it was their only choice because Yuhai was in a much better shape than the rest of them, and Thea said they needed to trust Yuhai while providing her with backup during this battle she was about to have. Elka told Yuhai she'd never forgive her if she gave up, and Yuhai replied that she'd show her the results of her training. When Yuhai charged up her magic energy, the Shadow Man realized that she was a competent fighter, but before they could begin their battle, everyone sensed a magic energy that sent shivers down their spine. Just then, Setsu made a superhero landing and commended Yuhai for her bravery before assuring her that she was safe now. At the Beastman continent, the commander informed Regulus that they were ready to send their forces to the demonic continent, so he ordered them to do so immediately. One of the elders in the palace was concerned that Eclair could be destroyed if another war breaks out, but Regulus assured him that Setsu would handle the matter. Back at the demon continent, Elka tried to rush to Setsu's side, but Yuhai beat her to the punch and started embracing him in sus ways before he reminded her that they were in a war zone. Yuhai got even more wild by showcasing the bedroom workout positions which Elka taught her, so Setsu gave her a head flick and told her to stand back with the others. Setsu stood across from the Shadow Man, and when he brought up their fight at Deza's palace, the man said he'd leveled up since then. He asked Setsu why he bothered himself with people who were weak and pointed out that compared to Setsu, Yuhai and the others were worth as much as insects. Setsu replied that he didn't care about strength and that he protected them because they were precious to him, causing the Shadow Man to grow even more determined to destroy the world. However, Setsu claimed that he'd protect the world because he wanted to, and made the first move in their fight by leaping into the air in an attempt to slash the Shadow Man in half. Meanwhile, Kuroinu was having a party on another portion of the battlefield by making human soldiers explode until Shire Nico and Minko showed up to face her. They expressed their happiness to see their one san again, and Shire Nico asked them to talk things out instead of fighting, but in response, Kuroinu laughed at their stupidity and threw some blades at them. Shire Nico and Minko deflected the blades easily, and Kuroinu tried to gaslight her way into a victory by telling them to willingly die by her hand as a way of proving their worth to her. Shire Nico actually started considering the offer, but Minko proved to be the one with a full set of marbles in the family as she stepped up to Kuroinu and said that she'd protect her sister no matter what. Shire Nico then said the same thing about Minko, so Kuroinu decided to unalive both of them and charged at them with full intent to do so. The cat sisters dodged a bunch of her attempts to slash them until she started using sneaky moves to catch them off guard. Shire Nico told Minko to follow her lead, and she knocked Kuroinu off her feet with a drop kick, allowing Minko to give her a Hulk smash into the ground. Shire Nico thought the fight was over, but Kuroinu suddenly got back up and tied Minko up using demonic arms that sprouted from her body. She smacked Shire Nico away using a second demon hand and started squeezing the life out of Minko as she declared that she'd end their farce of sisterhood by unaliving both of them. Just then, Kuroinu activated her limit break, which made her demon arms 10 times larger, and she used one of them to knock Shire Nico out with a brutal punch. She started yapping about how sisterhood had no value, causing Shire Nico to get back up and argue that the only one who saw sisterhood as a curse was her. This ticked Kuroinu off so much that she sent all her demon arms at once to crush her, but Shire Nico dodged all her attacks before doing a Dragon Ball fusion with Minko that combined them into a much stronger cat beast. Kuroinu started trash-talking them, but the cat girls shut her up by zooming behind her in the blink of an eye and saying that she stood no chance against them. When the cat girls pointed out that Kuroinu was scared, she summoned even more demon hands to use in attacking them, but the cat girls countered with a twister attack that ripped off most of the limbs, causing her to fall on the ground. However, Kiroinu refused to give up, and when she tried attacking them again, the cat girls finished her off with a Detroit smash right in the gut before undoing their fusion. Kiroinu expressed how revolting she found the idea of sisters who were close to each other, and the cat sisters decided to leave her to join the others in battle. Elsewhere, some demon soldiers tried to attack a mysterious hooded man, but he blew them all away before revealing his outfit that was goofier than the average JoJo cosplay while introducing himself as Verdos. Suddenly, Roa showed up and took him down with a punch to the face, but unfortunately, her punch hurt her a lot more than it did him. She informed the demon soldiers that she was sent to assist them and told them to stand back so she could face Verdos alone. Roa correctly guessed that his Verdos body was made of iron, and he revealed that he was created by humans during the torturous experiments that he had to endure during his past years. He spoke about how grateful he was to Toma for saving him, causing Roa to reveal in an angry manner that Toma was the one who was trying to destroy the world based on a delusion. Verdos said he had no problem with that, because he believed that those who were strong deserved to get whatever they wanted, and then he brought up Rauga in an attempt to tease her, causing her to kick him in the face. Roa's kick injured her leg, but she didn't care because she introduced herself in a dramatic manner and swore to defeat him, even if it took hitting him 1,000,000 times until his tin-can body finally breaks. Verdos then unveiled his second power, which came in the form of a dark grainy aura that made his body transform into metal tennis balls. Using this form, he pummeled Roa until she fell to the floor and said that pride was meaningless in their world as he walked away. However, Roa got back up and said that pride was the most important thing in the world to her. Her aura overflowed when she claimed that she'd be willing to take him down even at the cost of her life. And using this powered-up form, she bulldozed through the metal tennis balls he threw at her and landed a clean blow on his face. Verdos was stunned because he'd heard stories about how those from the Beastman bloodline were capable of achieving Super Saiyan form by sacrificing themselves in order to take down the enemy, but he decided to go all out as well as he transformed his body into a dark metal form. Roa punched his body repeatedly, not caring about the blood spewing from her fists with every hit, and eventually Verdos' body started to crack, so he created metal spikes from his body that impaled her brutally. However, Roa proved to be an even bigger maniac than he imagined as she destroyed the metal spikes and punched a hole through Verdos' body. She claimed that a Beastman's pride is tougher than anything else before passing out, but Verdos surprisingly healed her before falling to the ground himself. When Roa asked why Verdos was working for Toma, he said he simply liked hot guys and told her to live on with her stupid pride, causing her to reply that she'd carry his pride with her as well. Meanwhile, the Shadow Man froze Setsu using a shadow spell, but before he could land the finishing blow, Setsu undid the spell and parried him away. Setsu told him to give up and call Toma since he could never defeat him, but the Shadow Man decided to show his resolve by activating his limit break, which became in the form of a dark armor. When they charged at each other again, Setsu tried to cut him down, but his sword couldn't pierce the armor, and the Shadow Man revealed that his armor had the ability to absorb energy, including energy as powerful as Setsu's. He punched Setsu away and claimed that Setsu had no chance, but Setsu used a special move which charged up some red aura and fired a massive slash towards the Shadow Man. The attack destroyed the man's special armor and sword, and Setsu praised him for being able to deflect the attack at the last second in order to save his life. Setsu told him to give up if he didn't want to die, but the Shadow Man responded by giving a dumb speech about how all he lives for was to die for his mission. When he charged at Setsu, the hero struck him down while calling him a doofus, and he felt grateful that his final fight was against a worthy opponent. Elsewhere, Toma noticed that all of his associates had been defeated, but he still felt happy because it was finally time for him to face Setsu. Setsu saw his dark aura gathering up from afar and knew the time had come to face the final boss Toma. Meanwhile, Levia rushed into the demon castle to check on Dezes, and Dezes revealed to her that the battle was going in their favor because Toma's powerful minions had been defeated. Just then, Toma interrupted them and charged up his sword with aura as he told them that he'd teach them what despair was if they resist him. Setsu rushed into the castle to check up on Levia and Dezes, but by the time he got there, Toma had already defeated them. Toma started talking about his evil plans for them, causing Setsu to angrily charge at him with a sword attack, which he managed to parry away. The two of them clashed with so much intensity that their auras pushed them away from each other, and Toma followed up by transforming his sword into a dark javelin and throwing at Setsu. Setsu struck the attack away, and it not only destroyed the castle, but also cracked the sky in a manner that stunned Dezes and Levia. Toma blasted him with more dark attacks, but Setsu destroyed them using a massive slash before Toma blasted Setsu from behind with a huge slash of his own. When the two of them charged at each other again, Setsu knocked away Toma's sword and started feeding him some knuckle sandwiches until Toma pushed him away with a dark spell. Toma decided to kick things up a notch by transforming his magic sword into a huge magic gun, and he demonstrated its power by destroying a nearby mountain with a single blast. He fired several shots at Setsu, but Setsu dodged all of them, so he transformed the magic gun into a machine gun and started firing away at Setsu. In response, Setsu summoned Gluttony and absorbed his magic shots before launching a sword combo attack on Toma. When the rest of Setsu's gang showed up, Setsu told Toma to give up because all of his own allies were goners, causing Toma to have a deadly tantrum that covered the entire sky with dark aura. Setsu realized that the dark power was coming from the cursed pendant, and Toma activated his own limit break, which took the form of two enormous magic blasters. Toma started firing relentlessly at Setsu, but Setsu evaded his attacks until Toma attempted to blast his friends. Setsu quickly activated Gluttony to absorb the attack, but some of the energy destroyed the castle. Luckily, Setsu's friends were able to protect themselves using a magic shield, and Setsu fired a barrage of magic slashes that destroyed Toma's limit break before cutting him down once and for all. While flying through the air, Toma remembered everything he went through with Setsu, causing his magic to go berserk and transform into the biggest gun imaginable. When Toma blasted Setsu with his weapon, he tried to block with a magic shield, but the attack was so strong that it destroyed the shield and floored Setsu. Toma started monologuing about how great it felt to finally beat Setsu, but the dumb hero got back up and said that Toma could never beat him. Suddenly, Setsu enclosed him in a dimensional barrier, which prevented him from being able to use his limit break gun before using a special attack called Earth Eater that transformed the floor around Toma into teeth. In that desperate situation, Toma begged Setsu to spare him, but Setsu did nothing as the attack took effect, and Toma realized that all he ever wanted was to be by Setsu's side. Some minutes later, Toma woke up and Setsu revealed that his plan was to bring him back to his senses by having his sword eat the curse that was affecting him. Toma started crying as he asked why Setsu spared him, and Setsu replied that he could never allow him to die. Several days later, Setsu visited Toma in his jail cell and revealed that his punishment was to use all of his magic power into creating a transfer spell that would send all of his classmates back to their original world. He also suggested that Toma follow them so he could get a fresh start, and after he left, Toma cried because he couldn't believe Setsu fulfilled his promise to him. Sometime later, Toma sent all of Setsu's classmates back to their world, and Toma refused to go back with them so that he could properly atone for his crimes by living a magicless life in the fantasy world. Afterwards, Setsu and Yuhai said goodbyes to the rest of the gang and went to the demonic continent, where Dezes showed them how much Ruri's shop was flourishing in the city. They also visited the Beastman continent, where they reunited with Roa, Shireniko, and Mineko, who revealed that they were now the ones in charge of the Beastman army. Which of the monster girls in the series would you love to play with if you were Setsu? Cat girls or demon girls? Leave your thoughts in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.